So from black and gold to green and white, Formula One has had some iconic liveries and we've now seen the rest of the field for 2026, so it's time for us to talk about how they look. Welcome to Grid Talk, my name is Ruby Price and today we're here to look at the remaining liveries that we've seen for the 2026 season. This is following on from our livery reaction part 1, so if you've not listened to that, go and check it out. But joining me today, we've got Owain Medford.
Hello.
And Tom Horrocks.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, both of you. So let's get started. We've got some new blood on the grid, and we've just been talking about it. Tom Horrocks, tell me about Cadillac. What do you think of their livery? Any thoughts about it? And of course, it is a split. Well, it's more asymmetrical than split, but that harkens back to a previous American entrance to the grid.
It does, yeah. And what I've already mentioned a few things on previous podcasts about my thoughts on the current liveries, but what I've decided to do, I'm ignoring all of the renders and all of the promotional shots, and all I'm judging these liveries on is the on-track stuff. Now, we've seen them all on track now, and I have to say, after seeing the renders of the Cadillac and what I was expecting, what I was hoping for from that car, I was incredibly disappointed. But seeing it on track now, I actually really like it. It's not my favorite livery, but there's just something about it. Before it was just another kind of black swirly car, but now I've seen it in say on track and in action. There's a lot more white in there. It's a lot more. It just pops a lot more on track than I thought it would on the renders, and it doesn't look too much like a West McLaren Mercedes, which is what I was slightly worried about when I first saw it. But it definitely looks better on one side than the other. The whole split livery thing, I know that's contentious, but in 1999, no, was it 1999 or 2000? Might have been 2000 when the BAR debuted with that livery. It was definitely mixed reactions, but I grew to love that. I always thought it was really interesting with the zip up the middle, and I know it was kind of a Frankenstein's monster car that was born out of an idea that they couldn't do because Bernie Ecclestone. But like, I actually really liked it once I got used to it. And with this one, I think now I've had a few days to think about it, I do really like it as well. It's just something a little bit different. The car's going to change color depending on which direction it's facing, which is kind of cool as well. So no, overall, I'm happy with it. And I did like on the Super Bowl advert that we were all just watching together before the start of this podcast, the America's new team, bit of a sly dig at Haas there, because they kind of basically just saying that Haas aren't even an American team. So yeah, anything for like shade being thrown, I'm all for. Give it a little bit of drama.
Yeah, I feel like hashtag because Bernie Ecclestone is like the new, just X things. But yeah, Owain, you had a couple of thoughts about Cadillac, and of course, there's this thing about chrome being one of their brand colors, which we did see in that Super Bowl advert, but it's not there on the car now. What do you think of Cadillac?
Yeah, I mean, Cadillac's a bit of a difficult one because you look at their logo and you can see the yellow, red, and blue, which they have used in other racing series, and you typically see that dotted about all over their cars when they have gone racing, and so it was quite sort of shocking to see that this asymmetric white and black design. Now, the official reasoning, there's people saying out there that it's because Cadillac's official racing colors are chrome for the brand and things like that, and it's meant to the gradient is meant to sort of evoke the look of light patterns on chrome. But the official reasoning is that they want it to look a little mean, so that's and have some edginess to it. So that's the black elements of the car, and then the sort of white is, according to the FIA, the national racing colours of the United States are white with blue stripes. So that's something that was sort of popularised, in the sort of kart days, or sorry, not the kart, nart days. Sorry. Now, I'm not really getting that from this livery. I don't think it looks amazing, to be perfectly honest. I think it looks better than some liveries on the grid, but I think, given what we've seen from Cadillac in the past, I think they really could have, integrated that the sort of more conventional colours for themselves a bit better. And as much as they claim that they're sort of very, the sort of colours of the United States, and that's how they're showing it in this car, I really don't see it. I'm not a massive fan of this livery whatsoever.
Yeah, it is certainly a bit of a shocking livery in terms of, I feel like nobody was kind of expecting the asymmetry to it. And I feel like that's obviously, it might take a bit of an adjustment period. But I think, as Tom's obviously pointed out on this podcast, people get over things quite quickly in Formula One. Hopefully people might get over a load of speculation around engine compressions and things like that as well. But, we'll see what happens in terms of deals with the FIA. But we'll stick with you, Owain. The Williams livery, they've added a bit of colour to it, light blue in particular. What do you think of the Williams livery, and do you think this is better than last year?
It's very clearly sort of evolution rather than revolution, as I skip the opportunity to make that rhyme by actually pronouncing the words properly. Yeah, it's really kind of, I don't know, just something about adding the Barclays sponsorship in, because that's where that new blue has come from, into the car. Just particularly where it is and the way it highlights the edge of the side pod, there's something about it that just kind of throws me off. I don't particularly like it. It's going to sound like I'm doom and gloom and Mr. Grumpy Old Man here, but I just don't quite like it. I think that maybe if they'd extended more of the white from the Komatsu sponsorship up and then had Barclays somewhere else, because you could put it in silhouette. I get that there's probably part of the deal that means that the Barclays get to get their brand colours in there, and it's a really prominent place on the car. And that's something that you do notice about this car, is that it is covered in sponsors, and that's obviously as much as for us visually it might look a bit incoherent, it's a great problem to have if you're struggling to fit in the amount of sponsors that you have, who hopefully are paying in good money. Now, apart from that, I think it's sort of slightly made the car look a little worse, and the Golf branding has really taken a sort of back seat, because it's right in the place you can't see it. But clearly, I think they've integrated it relatively well, but I don't like it on the whole.
I've kind of got a bit of a love-hate relationship with Williams liveries anyway. I like how they've gone back to blue, but there's just it's not enough of. They're trying to like create the brand identity of bringing it back to the 90s Williams and everything, but they're not going far enough with it. And to me, I've said before that there's not enough yellow on it. Get rid of that light blue, put yellow on it, then it's going to look a bit more like an FW14B, and then everybody is happy. But just looking at it now, I just dawned on me, and I wasn't going to speak about Williams, but this just looking at it, it just popped into my head. Do you know what the livery reminds me of? If you go to like a steakhouse and they've got like a steak and it's all divided into sections, that's what it looks like. It looks like it's highlighting which area of the car you want to eat. It just looks like a jigsaw car made out of Lego, and like every sponsor has its own little section, which is its own little color. And yes, fortunately, none of the colors clash, so that kind of they get away with it. But if this was brands that had different colors, that car would look absolutely horrendous. And I've now that I've seen that, I can't unsee it, and I'm kind of a bit done with it, to be honest.
Tom Horrocks just waiting for F1 2027 so that we doesn't have to look at the Lego Williams. But yeah, there's obviously Owain touched on like sponsorship integration and things like that. Williams have got one of the best examples of sponsorship integration with that Duracell over the airbox, and I think that looks really cool. But at the same time, I feel like just the Barclays stuff just isn't brought in very well personally. And we could talk about Barclays. There's a lot of sponsors in Formula One that aren't worth talking about, so we'll save that for another day. But at the very least, if you've got a problem with Formula One sponsorship, look at Formula One sponsorship, is what I'm going to say. But let's talk about a team who've made so much change to their livery that they revealed this time last year. And it's McLaren, who have obviously kept with the papaya and the black. And they've now got some more MasterCard prominence on it. But what do you think of their car?
Yeah, it's a McLaren, isn't it? I mean, the thing is, you say that nothing's. I mean, you say obviously they've changed lots. I know obviously you're being in jest, but there is one massive change in that car which I think looks phenomenal, and that's a massive number one right in the middle of the nose cone. That is a big that's a big improvement on last year. So like, it's fine. Like, it's a really nice looking car, and I know not much has changed on it, but it's still a really nice looking car. A really nice looking car is always a really nice looking car. I still love the way that the orange, I'm going to call it orange, the way it's laid out is very much laid out like the Marlboro McLaren, red and white, except in different colors, which gives them that opportunity to actually do the red and white McLaren as a Warner for a livery at some point. I know they've done close iterations of it, but there is definitely an opportunity there just for one race. Maybe at Suzuka or something, or at Imola. I know we're not there at Imola anymore, so that's not going to work. But just something like that, just to really kind of reward the fans of yesteryear and me, basically, because I'm old. that'd be amazing. But I think it's fine. Like they have a brand image that they're trying to stick to, and that works. They're making minor changes every year, and obviously it very much depends on the sponsors as well. So it's fine. It's still a good looking car. It's still a nice looking car. It's still a McLaren. I think very much like what Red Bull have done, that they don't want to be making wholesale changes to that car. And I think this brand is going to be there for as long as Zach Brown is in charge of the team or in charge of the organization, to be honest, because I can't see any reason to change it unless they run into massive financial trouble and they need to sell their soul to the devil to kind of get some money in, Uri Kalai, that kind of thing. So yeah, it's great. Like I love it. It's a really nice looking car. The car looks great as well as it's born well. It looks good. It looks like a proper racing car again. And not that the old cars weren't, but been lucky enough to see some of the McLarens and this year's McLaren in person. And the size of it shocked me. I've seen a lot of F1 cars over the years, and the sheer size of it, and also being close up to the car, and just the bare carbon makes it look awful in person as well. And the new regulation, which I've been calling for years, which is still a little bit ambiguous for me, 55% of the car surface viewed from both the above and the side. Like just say all surfaces, all like surfaces that touch the air. That's fine. 55%, that's an improvement. There still needs to be more. It needs to be 70, 80%. Like, why? I know they've got issues getting down to the weight limit, but we're talking a few grams of paint here. So, like, give it a year. They've now run with this regulation set. Up it to 70% next year, up it to 80% the year after. You can still have a little bit on there because obviously you've got to have some bits that are bare for access points, for whatever, for tools to get in and everything. And that's all fine. But put it up to 80%. We want to see color. We want to see like the Jordans back in the grid and those really bright, like Scuderia Italia type cars, that kind of thing. That's the kind of cars we want to see back on the grid again. And when people keep coming out with bare carbon liveries, which has been my absolute bugbear, it's nice to see that hopefully is going to become a thing of the past fairly soon. And it's made a step this year. The liveries are better than last year, but I universally hated pretty much all of them last year. So good step forward.
Indeed. And I feel like, the people who are like, oh, you can't mandate aesthetic changes. I mentioned this before we started. In 2015, they made it so that you had to make your front nose look good and stuff like that, after in backlash to the weird noses that we got in the 2014 season, which, looked horrendous in some instances. So yeah, you can mandate aesthetics, but, just put some paint on them, make it look nice and shiny and bright, and let's have a nice colourful grid once again, as opposed to black with a couple of aspects as opposed to the other way around. But, yeah, McLaren, they've got a 5-star brand. Grid Talk, we're a 5-star podcast, and if you agree, please take 5 to leave us a 5-star rating on Spotify, a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, or if you're watching on YouTube, give us a thumbs up as well. And if you're listening and aren't currently subscribed, please consider helping us out with a like and a subscribe. And I feel like that was probably one of my better segs in terms of podcasting that I've done in quite a while. So Owain, let's talk about Aston Martin then, who, according to the pre-season testing that's been going on today, Lance Stroll said that they're running 4 seconds a lap slower, and it's all down to the engine. But we're not here to talk about the engines. We're here to talk about the cars, and it looks like an Aston Martin. Do you agree?
Yeah, it's certainly similar to the Williams, but even less so. It looks like it did before. They've made some minor changes here and there, and I think honestly the livery looked better on the previous car than it does on this one. But I'm starting to take issue, and I've felt it for a couple of years at least, ever since they sort of tried to make this work. I don't think that this metallic, like slightly metallic, slightly matte kind of finish for this shade of green, I don't think it works. I get that it's obviously trying to be British racing green, but you compare it to some of the other shades that have been out there. I think this finish sort of lends itself more to a brighter green. If you were to look at, I think it was the maybe 2015 Caterham, as much as that car was slow, so you got a long time to look at it, that kind of look, or the shades that they were using prior to that point, back when that team was Lotus, I think that looks a little bit better in this metallic sort of color scheme. Otherwise, I think you should be using sort of solid block colors. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say that I'm a massive fan of hugely intricate liveries, because I think it takes quite a lot for those to work. But this is for a livery that is mostly block colours and with that sort of slight integration of the lighter green sort of flowing through with the sort of where the air might flow. You can see they've integrated that. But for me, I don't think it's a particularly. It doesn't look particularly good in the sun. I don't think it's looked particularly good in under the lights when we're at the night races. I honestly think that Aston Martin would do a lot better if they were to sort of change the shade of green they're using and change the finish. It's not sort of jumping out off the page for me. And I just don't think this particular shade, which is stupidly small to be getting hung up on, works in a Formula One car for some reason. I'd love to be proved wrong, but I think it's kind of it's a bit drop the dead donkey, and it doesn't seem like you're gonna sort of blink and you'll miss it either with how it's being on track. So from that perspective, I think kind of it's sort of a bit of a damp squib, and I'm underwhelmed for a team that's undergoing so much change. I think they need to sort of add that in too as a way to show that they are a different team and they mean business. But this livery really doesn't say that they do.
It certainly doesn't. I think this team have obviously had, in previous iterations as well, some very striking liveries. And I just feel like the Aston Martins that we've had just haven't been that good, if I'm being perfectly honest. And I know I have a lot of anti-Aston Martin team bias anyway, and I'm going to vocalize that. But at the same time, I just don't think they've really delivered as a brand in Formula One, other than getting to have one of their road cars running at the front of the grid every now and then when there's a safety car, which, as we celebrated before we started this episode, will not be a thing in 2026 because it's back to the Mercedes for the entire season once again. But Tom, you kind of already touched on this with your comments about carbon fiber exposure, but what do you think about, this bunch of liveries that we've got for 2026? Is there anything that stands out? What's your general vibe?
I think for me, there's one thing which I didn't realize I missed it until it came back, and that is the glossy paint. Like so many cars had gone to matte liveries, and when they first came in, like that first Red Bull that came in with the matte livery, it's like, wow, that's really good, and that like all the colors really stand out now. And but for me, like just that the glossy shiny finished cars look so much better. I'm gonna just hark back to seeing these cars in person again. I'm sorry, I'll just pick it up off the floor, but it's like seeing like you've got like the MP44 sitting next to like a 2023 McLaren, and it's like it's obvious which one looks cooler, even though like all the vast technology that's gone into it. These cars, I know they're prototypes, they're not meant to be like production road cars, they're not meant to look perfect, but my god, did those classic cars look perfect when they were fully covered in paint, and the glossy liveries, just fantastic. 20, 30, 40 years on, they still look amazing. The other cars from last year and a few years ago, stick them in the bin after 6 months. They look horrible. So that for me is the best thing. It's the overall paint coverage and the glossy finish. That's for me the best things that have happened to these liveries in a good long time.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you over the glossy things. Like the Red Bull livery, I remember when we saw that for this year. Like I was like, it's shiny and it looks cool and it's a bit brighter as well. And just the fact that it's not as dull, like you get a real sense of, about it almost. There is something that like lets it stand out and stuff. And I think, yeah, the matte liveries that we've had over the last couple of years, I feel like they're not going to be the ones that we remember in another 20 or 30 years compared to, as you said, like the MP44, I want to say, was the one that you said off the top of my head. But, I'll take a nodding head as a confirmation of that. But, Owain, how do you feel about the cars for this year?
To be perfectly honest, I'm quite conflicted because I think on average, like if I were to give like every single livery a score and then average it out and then compare it to previous years, these are more coherent and better liveries than we've seen in quite a while. And yet I don't particularly like any of them, really. There's something, that even if it was slow as anything, I think, was it that 2021 Alpine, the where it was just completely metallic blue, with the French flag on the rear wing with, and black wings. That looked stunning to me. That looked absolutely brilliant. Even the Mercedes, the 2022 and 2023 Mercedes, those are absolutely stunning cars. And I'm not getting that from any of these liveries in particular. But like I say, I think they're probably on average the strongest liveries that we've had in a good long while, possibly like 10 or 15 years.
Yeah, they are certainly some strong ones indeed. Now, I know that this is probably a bit of a tough ask, but I'm gonna ask for a favorite. So, Tom, what's your favorite of the cars that we've got for 2026?
I am really torn, and I think it's a top three for me, but they're not going to be a top three that you're going to expect. But I am going to pick a favorite. But my top three, weirdly, are Red Bull, Ferrari, and Mercedes. And I know people are going to think what, but I really like Ferraris with white on them. I always have. I love that 2016 Ferrari. I love the Niki Lauda Ferraris. Obviously, the 1993 Ferrari was absolutely awful, but I still like the white stripe on it. So for me, that's up there. I really just like the look of the Mercedes in general, but I am going to go for the Red Bull for my favorite. Like going back to the gloss and the light blue Red Bulls. I know that again, this is a slight change from what they normally do, but what they normally do looks so blooming good. Like they always produce a good looking car. A car doesn't have to change to look good. It's always a good looking car. And it is my favorite. It's in the past. It's normally been the sister team or that's kind of snuck ahead, and I do like the Racing Bulls one, but it's just kind of a bit more of like, yeah, it's just Red Bull Light, and yeah, for me, it's the Red Bull. I'm shocking myself to say it, but it is. It's. I think it's a fabulous looking car and the best on the grid.
Yeah, I know what you're saying about the Racing Bulls as well, because I think that the 2025 grid, like I think it was the Racing Bulls that was my favorite livery, and I feel like there's something about this year's that kind of like doesn't put it in that upper echelon. But I definitely agree with you. I think Red Bull, they've got a solid identity. We always know what a Red Bull car is going to look like. But I feel like this year it just what they've done to it, making it brighter, making it glossy, adding that blue, probably from the Ford, like it takes it up just another notch. Owain, what's your favorite livery of 2026?
To be perfectly honest, I think just about it's the Mercedes. Something about I think I said it I did say it in the previous show, which as Ruby said at the top of the show, you should go back and listen to if you haven't already. There's something about putting that livery on this generation of cars just makes it works so much better. It seems like the elements actually fit the car that they're designed to be on. That's a really important part of the liveries is you have to integrate the actual design onto the shapes, and I think sometimes they miss that, some of these designers, and I think the Mercedes have done the best job of it, and it looks right somehow to my eye. So I'm going to be excited to be seeing that on track.
Yeah, I also agree. And, of course, the two of you have said Mercedes as part of your top three at the very least. And I also feel like the Mercedes is definitely up there. And, there is an element of bias to that at the very least because Mercedes are a team I've supported for a long time. But I do think it looks quite nice as well. I think the addition of the stripes to it gives it something to break it up as well. And particularly like looking at it from above looks quite cool. Maybe not necessarily the same from the side, but like that aerial shot of the Mercedes looks really cool with the way that it kind of fans out as it heads backwards. But for me, I think my favorite livery, and I think I said this in part one of the episode, was the Haas. Like, I think it looks really cool. Like, and we've had some Haas liveries that definitely haven't landed previously, or we've had some Haas liveries that look like another livery that, but has got nothing to do with that because of sponsorship. But at the same time, like I just think the white, the red, the little bit of black, this makes it probably one of the better looking Hasses that we've had in a couple of years. And I think just the starkness of it will make it stand out quite a lot on the grid, unless the Cadillac is passing it from the right side at the very least, and we're looking at it from the right camera angle, so it's two white cars passing each other. But you never know. Maybe they'll be occupying the back of the grid together this year. But yeah, those are the liveries for 2026. What do you think of them? Let us know in the comments below or over on social media if you're just listening. And yeah, Tom, if people want to hear more from you, where can they do that?
Well, I'm part of the Monkey Seat podcast, which is Grid Talk's dirty cousin, and we're going to get very dirty in the next episode when Carl has to do the podcast naked. We're not normally a X-rated podcast, but This is because of a bet that he made with me for last year. That will be the next podcast when eventually that happens. Probably after testing just before Australia, I would imagine. Don't worry, there will be sensors. We will not be going down that route, but he will have to still sit there in the nod for the whole podcast, which will be hilarious. So we just chat about Formula One, talk rubbish, and try to offend absolutely everybody equally.
Taking a holistic approach to that, and at the very least you won't have to take a selfie in order to watch the next episode of The Monkey Seat if you are at least in the UK. Owain, anything you want to plug at this opportunity?
I'd like to plug Grid Talk social channels. So if you want to chat with us about these liveries or anything else, no, not anything Formula One related, keep it out of the gutter, then come and find us on all the social media platforms with the app. That's at Grid Talk UK. On all the social media platforms with the app.
Indeed, at least the one's worth having at the very least. And if you want to hear more from me, I'm at Ruby Rose Price over on Instagram, and Grid Talk is available on YouTube as well as Amazon Fire, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Verbal and Pocket Casts. Just search Formula One Grid Talk for our back catalogue of shows with previews and reactions to the race results. Thank you to Jared Bradley and Holly Eagle for supporting us on Patreon. If you want to support the show further, why not sign up for our Patreon for exclusive content? And also make sure you subscribe to the first to know when each new episode is released. We'll be back soon with plenty more F1 content. Thank you very much for listening to the Grid Talk podcast, and goodbye.